What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters. Welcome to Life to Metal. It's time for my top 20 of 2017. Obviously, with stuff I've shown, I've purchased more than just 20 albums this year, new albums. But I'm going to keep this list down to 20, keep the video as short as possible. I did find it hard to cut some stuff out, so I quickly wanted to show a couple ones that I'm just going to call those bonus items. I don't know, runners up. But I don't usually include live albums, so I thought I'd show this one because I haven't seen hardly anybody show this album, but I think this is a fantastic live album. Raw, heavy. It's Metal Church, and it's Mike Howe on vocals. They do a mixture of all. It's mostly old songs, actually. A little bit of the stuff from the first two albums, but really mostly Mike Howe era stuff. And it's just a fantastic live album. Two record sets. Nothing from the 2016 album on there, unfortunately, but regardless. 3 sides live, and then the fourth side, side D, has 2 songs. It's Fake Healer re-recorded, studio version, and Badlands re-recorded. Yeah, and I'm just gonna. What else we got here? This one might have made my top 20. This is Stallion. I only have it on CD. This is a German heavy metal band, kind of melodic, but just straightforward heavy metal. Clean vocals, sometimes high-pitched. Very good band. I think if I would have been able to spend a little more time with this one, it probably would have made my top 20. However, I just received this a few weeks ago, and I've only heard it a couple times. But I do like what I've heard, so it's a very good album. First time in a long time Creator's released an album that won't be in my top 20. I think Creator are fantastic. For whatever reason, though, this one just didn't hit me like some of their other albums. So it's a good album. It's it's some kind of a mixture of German power metal and thrash. It's not really your old raw thrashy stuff, but it's a good album. Gods of Violence from 2017. A couple of EPs that I probably would have included had I include EPs in this list, but I don't. This is Vulture, another German band. Speed metal, thrash metal, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it. This is the Guillotine, and it is a, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 song EP. To me, that's actually a full-length album, but whatever. It's a good album. Another one that I just recently received and just started listening to, but I really like what I've heard. So another good one from 2017 that just not in the top 20. And the last one I'm going to show for this, this is the new Gruesome EP, death metal with, obviously, if you know anything about Gruesome, these guys kind of are paying a tribute to Chuck and Death. So that's what the sound is like here. This is a 7-song EP, but it's got demos from 2014, and it's got a re-recorded version of Choke on It from Death, and then a new song called Fragments of the Psyche, which is fantastic. So yeah, it's a solid EP from them. If it would have been a full length, I probably would have made my list as well. So now I'm going to get into my top 20.
Top 20 of 2017. Metal.
And honestly, putting these in order of, it was just like getting ridiculous. So I was like, with the exception of maybe the top 5 or so, these really aren't in any order. They're just all the top 20 that I love from 2017. It's the one that just got stuck in my CD player, got stuck on my turntable, and just, I love them. So this is a brand new album from Ranger. And these guys, a lot of people call them thrash. Perhaps that's right. I think they're more of a speed metal kind of band. They kind of have that similar style to those old purveyors of speed bands like Raven and Venom, and especially Exciter. They kind of have that vibe going on. So it's not really quite thrash metal. If you put these guys up against like Havoc, it's a different sound. A little more raw, a little looser, and a little, I don't know what the word is. It's just a different sound, but it's really good. If you like old Exciter, like the first 3-4 albums from Exciter, that's kind of what you're going to get here. Very good old school speed metal from Ranger. This is speed and violence, and even the title gives it away. Sounding kind of like an Exciter album. This one probably would have been in my top 5. Wish I would have it on vinyl. I don't, but it's a great album. I kind of got it towards the end of the year, but man, I just can't stop listening to this all of a sudden. First listen, it was okay, but then it just grew on me more and more. And now I do have the vinyl coming, unfortunately coming all the way from Europe, so it's taken a while. But this is Hex, Wrath of the Reaper, and this is a brand new album from Hex. And this is right exactly the style of music that I loved from them. They kind of in the 80s went from the speed power metal, US speed power metal, to thrash, to death metal, and you know, I was like, it was okay. I like the death metal stuff, but this is a return to form. This is early power metal, US power metal, in line with bands like Metal Church or perhaps Vicious Rumors and you know, Hyrax and Heretic, excuse me, and you know, bands like that. Very, very good, very catchy, very heavy. Vocalist is unusual, kind of has a little bit of similarities to David Wayne at times. Most of the time it works. A few times it doesn't, but even David Wayne had times where his vocals didn't kind of fit as well as you would like them to. But this particular album is just fantastic. Definitely worthy of being in the top 20. Can't wait to get the vinyl and give it a spin on the stereo. So, Hex, Wrath of the Reaper. The third album from this band, fantastic hard rock from Black Star Riders. Of course, this is the band that formed out of the ashes of what was touring as Thin Lizzy. Only member on here that's, you know, from Thin Lizzy is Scott Gorham, but just fantastic stuff. They still tour as Thin Lizzy. They still do a lot of Lizzy, you know, songs, cover songs. It's just, but their new material is just as awesome, I think, as the Thin Lizzy stuff. You know, maybe not, but it's really good. And I really like it. This is another one I only have on CD. I need to get the vinyl on this one as well. Honestly, I think this band, their first album was good, their second album was great, and their third album is just as great. So I think these guys are just on a roll, releasing solid heavy metal in that Thin Lizzy tradition with the dual guitar leads, the slight Irish influences, and just positive, fantastic hard rock. Return to form for this band. This is Hammerfall. Another one I have on CD only, but honestly, I can't even tell you how many times I played this one over and over and over again. Just a fantastic album from them. Really return to form. If you like their first 3-4 albums, that's kind of the sound they're going for here, and I think they do a fantastic job at it. You know, it is that European power metal sound. It's not saturated with keyboards, and it's not all Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff, and not all double bass and speedy. It's just good, solid heavy metal. More in common actually with US power metal than with a lot of what's going on with the European power metal. But it's just a fantastic album from Hammerfall. If you're at all familiar with them, if you like anything from their early catalog, do yourself a favor and check this album. Check out this album, Built to Last, from 2017. One of the surprise albums for me this year. This one wasn't released on vinyl; it was only released on CD. And some people are going to say this is favoritism because it's on the Rocks label, and everybody knows I worked for them. But this Biogenesis album is fantastic. Now, I've known Chaz Bonds, the singer from Biogenesis, for decades. Him and I shared the same label back in the 90s. We were both on Row Productions when he was in Bio and I was in Ultimatum. And I liked him back then, but nothing that they've released up to this point captured my attention quite like this one did. It's just fantastic, progressive, technical, heavy metal. It's got a bit of a modern vibe, but for the most part, it's just straightforward heavy metal. Chaz kind of has that. I don't want to say baritone. He's kind of has a. I don't know. Chaz has got a very unique style. At times he can growl, but that's not his main style. His main style is singing, and he kind of has a sound not unlike Eric Clayton from Savior Machine or Jimmy Brown from Deliverance. That kind of clean singing style mixed with a little more aggressive style once in a while. Guitar playing is awesome. Drumming is awesome. It's just nothing I don't like about this band. Got to see them live this summer, and that just solidified it. Had them all, obviously, you can see the signatures on here. Had them all sign this CD, and it's just fantastic album. I mean, I really am not pushing it just because it's on Rocks. It really is that good. If you're into progressive or US power metal or any of that kind of heavy stuff that's not thrash or not death metal, do yourself a favor and check out Biogenesis, A Decadence Divine. All right, now we're getting into the vinyl. Surprise release for me. I didn't even know who this band was. Some of you may know Kenneth from the vinyl community. He hooked me up with this album, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. But this is Momentum from Eclipse, and melodic, heavy metal, hard rock, whatever you want to call it. It's not power metal. It's not raw heavy metal. It's very refined, very clean, very melodic, very memorable. Big hooks, big drums. Very influenced by the '80s, but not sounding out of date. Just very good melodic metal from Eclipse. Engineered by Eric Madison. Anyhow, don't know a lot about this band, honestly. This is the only album I have by them, but I did give it quite a few spins and really enjoyed it. It actually edged out some other stuff that I was surprised, I wouldn't have thought it would have, but Eclipse. Okay. Let's see, what was up next? Oh, yes. Gravedigger. Came out early in the year. Listened to it over and over again. The past few albums, past 2 decades of albums, have all been these kind of epic tales. You know, the whole album telling a story. But this one seems like is more song-oriented, and I totally dig that, you know, about this album. This one really caught my attention quicker than those did. Those ones I liked a lot, and I took a lot of listening to, and I just ended up enjoying them quite a bit. You know, I'm trying to think of some of the names of the other albums. It's ridiculous that I can't, but Knights of the Cross, that kind of thing. But this album just grabbed me by the jugular right away, beat me all over the head, and I just couldn't stop listening to it. So if you're into that, you know, German heavy metal, power metal stuff, this new Gravedigger album is fantastic. Fans of their first 3 albums will probably dig this one as well. Songs like Healed by Metal and Lawbreaker and When the Night Falls, the 10 Commandments of Metal, you know, that kind of stuff. You can just tell it's not the same thing. It's not telling some story. It's just song oriented, and it's very, very well done. And of course, the artwork is fantastic as always. These guys always have great artwork featuring the Gravedigger Grim Reaper. This is no surprise to most people who know me. I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan, but I call them as I see them. You know, Aerosmith came out with a new album a few years ago, and that one didn't make my list because, frankly, I didn't care for it that much. It wasn't a great album, despite the fact that they're one of my favorite bands. Well, Alice Cooper is one of my favorites, and this album is fantastic. I think it's far better than Welcome to My Nightmare that he released a couple years ago. This is a little heavier, a little more raw, rock and roll. I'm not going to say it's metal. It's not going to, you know, rival the stuff he did from the 70s. If you're into that style, it's not going to rival the stuff he did from the 80s, the pop metal stuff he did from the 80s, if you're into that stuff. But if you're into just, you know, what Alice does, this is very well done. Great rock and roll. Alice's voice still sounds, you know, as creepy as it ever was, and just a fantastic album from him. Got to see him live on this tour as well. With Deep Purple and Edgar Winter Band, and it was fantastic. Again, I only played one song from it, but it still solidified the fact that this album is just fantastic, and that song that they played just held up with the rest of the catalog. And I believe the song they played was Paranormal, which is the title track from this album, and it was also released as a single. Another surprise album. I like this band. I've liked them since I think it was the 90s, early 90s when the first album came out. This is Rose, or Randy Rose from Man at the World fame. Released several albums on Intense Records back in the day. First 2 albums kind of had that Danzig, kind of doomy vibe to them, stoner rock, whatever you want to call it. Just kind of heavy, Black Sabbath inspired rock. And then their 3rd album was an EP, and it kind of continued in that style. It was just live in a studio, but that one is fantastic as well. Then with Crazy Little World, they kind of went for more of an alternative rock sound, which I didn't really care for as much. Returned with another album that was, you know, back to the doom style, and then the huge disappearance. You know, they just haven't been around for a decade or more. And then they returned with this album, Songs for the Ritually Abused by Rose. This album is just mind-blowing. It's a very creepy album. It's very, I'm trying to think of the right word. Sad is not the right word. It's just, it deals with a heavy subject, so it's got a very heavy vibe to it. Maybe that's the word, a heavy vibe. I describe the music as Queen meets Danzig. You know, you got some of that old school Rose sound in here. You got his vocals, which is, of course, very signature. But he also has a singer who kind of has that Freddie Mercury sound. And they've got these layered vocals that are very Queen-like, especially the 70s kind of Queen sound. This album is just really, really well done. I think this is actually the best Rose album, better than anything he's released in the past. So if you're into you know, that Rose style from the old school at all, if you're into that Queen style, I think you'll dig Song from the Ritually Abused on Hindenburg Records, released in 2017. You can still get copies on vinyl and CD. Stone Groove Records has copies, and a bunch of other places do, but very worth picking up. I think the record was 300 copies or something like that were pressed. That was it. I think it's on like a pink vinyl too. I don't know if they all are, but mine is. Oh, this is a great return to form. Return album from Blood Feast, and you know, Be Great Slayer, absolutely, they did it the best. They were great at it. And this album, you know, even though it comes decades after their last album, it's just fantastic, and I actually think it's better than Chopping Block Blues. This returns to the sound of those first album and the Face Fate EP. It's that sort of sound. Obviously, the cover art continues with the, you know, the the horror themes that they were always into. You're going to get songs like Off With Their Heads and By the Slice and Last Rites, you know, Who Prays for the Devil and The Burn. Their sound, you know, it's a bit corny, but that's what they're all about. You know, if you're into that style, you're going to like this album. If you're into Blood Feast at all, this is a very good album to pick up. 2017, raw, heavy thrash metal. Okay, next up is an easy pick for 2017. The Kings of the Underground return with their second full-length album, Darkness Remains. New wave, a traditional heavy metal band. Fantastic heavy metal. I mean, if you're into that sound, that all Night Demon are one of the best in that style. They have memorable songs, heavy riffing. It's just what you want to hear when you want to hear traditional, straightforward heavy metal. You know, that kind of Judas Priest-inspired sound. And I just couldn't get enough of this album when it first came out. Played it over and over and over again. Darkness Remains is chock full of 10 fist-pumping, neck-wrecking, as pure as the driven snow heavy metal anthems. And that's exactly true. I mean, there's no exaggerating with that hype sticker. 500 copies, limited to 180 gram vinyl. Fantastic release. I believe this was on Hell's Headbangers or... Nope, Century Media. I was wrong. It's on Century Media Records. Very good album from them. Night Demon. Another surprise album. The third album from this band. I believe they're from Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken. Anyhow, it's Freakings. Thrash. Raw, aggressive, crunchy, old school thrash metal. Machine gun riffing, you know, pound over the head songwriting where you just get batter with a hammer, you know. It's just that sound that you want to hear from thrash. They get you pumped up, and when you're in the gym, get you pushing the extra weight. When you're on the road, get you pushing the pedal to the metal. It's that style of music. Very good album from Freakings. I think it's their best yet. And of course, the songs are exactly what you want to hear from a thrash band. Thrash Will Never Die, which features Lenny from Dust Bowl. Lenny from Dust Bowl. So you got Toxic and Brain Dead. I mean, that's like a classic Exodus tune. This is not an Exodus song here. This is their song. Beer Attack. You know, it's exactly what you expect from thrash metal. Very good album from Freakings. If you didn't pick this one up, I don't know if it's still available on vinyl, but it's definitely still available on CD. It was an independent release. It was never put on a label. It was distributed in the United States by Rox, so if there's any left, check roxproductions.com. Old school thrash metal from Freakings. One of my favorite new wave of traditional heavy metal bands. These guys came back with, I'd heard they'd broken up, but then they came back with Ramrod. Trying a little bit of something new here. A little less song-oriented than past albums. They've got the entire side B of this record is called Ramrod the Destroyer, broken up into several parts. And it's, you know, one of those long songs, like kind of like you would expect from like Manowar or even like, you know, Venom. Those kind of they all did those kind of long epic songs. That's kind of what you're going to get with side B on this Ramrod the Destroyer. But the side A has got 4 songs that are classic traditional Ram, you know, with that Merciful Fate, King Diamond inspired heavy metal sound. Really solid album from Ram. I'd be surprised this one didn't make most people's top 20 in 2017 for heavy metal, because it's just that good. Very, very limited release in the United States for some reason. This is number 70 of 100 from Metal Blade Records. Not sure why the release was so limited in the US, but I did pre-order this one because I wanted to make sure that I received a copy. It says orange vinyl, but it's actually on more of a yellow vinyl. This one was a gift, and I have one of their older albums. I liked it, but this album, it's just mind-blowing. Power Trip. This is Nightmare Logic. This is brutal, ripping thrash metal. A bit of a modern vibe, definitely a modern production, but it's not core whatsoever. It doesn't have any of that metalcore-ish vibe going on. It doesn't have any really of a hardcore sound. It does have a punk work ethic to it, but mostly it's just fantastic, down-picked riffing. You know, that machine gun riffing that's how I basically describe it. Fantastic guitar solos, total aggression. It comes at you 180 miles an hour and just runs you over. Train leaves and leaves you wanting for more. It's just, that's the kind of thing you're going to get here. This one I actually have seen on several people's lists for 2017, and rightly so. This is the new Power Trip, Nightmare Logic. Definitely a band to keep an eye out for. If you don't have this one, I highly recommend picking it up. So we're getting down to our, let's see what we got here. top six. So these ones I did put in order. These were definitely some of my absolute favorites for the year. Return to form for Iced Earth. Florida power metal band, pushing the boundaries of thrash at times. Always melodic, always heavy, always memorable. Fantastic vocals, aggressive yet clean, singing, but sometimes, you know, there's just more aggression than that. Just fantastic album from them. I think it's the best album they've done in a long time. And I like their entire catalog, so don't get me wrong thinking that I don't like the past few albums without Matthew Barlow. I think a lot of what they've done after Matthew left is fantastic. But this album, fantastic. It's just so good. I can't even just tell you how many times I played this thing on my turntable. So Iced Earth, Incorruptible. See what the hype sticker says. Oh, it's talking about the vinyl. it's all how awesome the vinyl is. Gatefold, 180 gram vinyl, 4-page lyric sheet, 12-page booklet, you know, all that kind of stuff. Poster, and yeah, it's a nice package too. Well worth picking up on vinyl if you can find a copy. Regardless, pick it up on CD, get it digital, I don't care how you get it. It's just a solid heavy metal album from Florida's Iced Earth. Now this one here didn't make some people's lists. I was kind of surprised. I know some people didn't like this as much, but when I first purchased this album, it wasn't like, didn't blow me away either, but it grew on me to the point where it made my top 5. This is the new Havoc Conformicide. Now, they have a new bass player, and that new bass player definitely affects their sound. He has kind of that, he does some of that kind of pop bass stuff, you know, that kind of poppy bass thing. And so he affects their sound a little bit, gives them some groove, gives them some funk at times, which, you know, when you think of thrash metal, generally, you could put groove in thrash metal, but very rarely do you think of like a funk, and they have that at times. So I can understand why some people don't like it, especially, I know a bass player in particular who loves Havoc, but can't stand this album. But I just found it to be great heavy metal. You know, it's just hooky songs, great riffing, fantastic guitar solos, and there's no denying that the bass playing is very good and adds to the sound. It gives them something unique. You know, they don't sound like Testament. They don't sound like Exodus. You know, and a lot of the newer thrash bands sound like other bands. And I think Havoc have really found their sound. This is Havoc. They don't sound like anybody else. So yeah, this is going to be number 5 for 2017, Conformicide. New wave traditional heavy metal. Nobody beat these guys this year, I don't think. Let's just double check that. No, this is Screamer. Wow. This is, I mean, it's heavy metal, so don't expect anything mind-blowing. Don't expect it to, you know, mix different styles together. Don't expect anything but solid, pounding heavy metal. It's not raw, but it is heavy, and it has very memorable songs, great singing, great guitar playing. I like the cover too. It's very simplistic, but I like simplistic covers like that. You know, it's this very memorable artwork. You know, kind of has that vibe, like, you know, early Priest or, you know, 80s Priest, or where it's very simple, but it conveys the message well. You know, an angry cat, aggression, and that's exactly what you're going to get with Screamer. I don't have the hype sticker for this one, but I can't remember where these guys are from. I should know that. Was it Sweden? Could be wrong on that. I should have looked it up before I did the video, right? But anyhow, it doesn't matter. In my last VCLT video I did, which I'll try and remember to link up below, I was playing it in the background, so you can check that out. But yeah, it's just very, very good heavy metal. This is, I think, their 3rd full-length album, and definitely their best. Some bands, you know, they put out their first album, and then they never release anything quite as good. This band just keeps getting better. And Screamer, Hell Machine is just one of the best of the year for me. Coming in at number 4. I love this band. Seen them live many times. I've shown their stuff before. They hadn't put an album out in a long time, but so glad to get a new album from Fireball Ministry. Not only is it a great new album, but it is a very good album from them. Probably their best album since the Second Great Awakening. I like all their material, frankly, and like I said, I've seen them live several times, met them a few times, and I just really enjoy their sound. Very heavily influenced by this heavy 70s stuff. Some people would call them doom. I don't think they're doom. It's kind of more of a 70s heavy metal sound, you know, hard rock, bit doomy at times, stoner rock, perhaps, whatever you want to call it. It's just heavy rock and roll. I'd call it 70s metal inspired. But again, memorable songs. The Reverend sounds as good as ever on vocals, and crunchy guitars, you know, very memorable riffs. At times you're going to hear some Tony Iommi influences on here. There's no doubt about it. But it's just a very, very good album. This is a limited edition, explosive new album from stoner doom metal icons Fireball Ministry, 500 on purple vinyl. So I'm sure with 500 there's probably still more out there available. But if you like that kind of slower, stoner, heavy rock, then you're going to dig this album because it just blew me away. I can't stop listening to it even still. Matter of fact, it still sits in front of my pile of to-play stuff. So Fireball Ministry, Remember the Story from 2017, coming in at number 3. Number 2, another return band. This is an older band from the 90s who broke up in the late 2000s, I believe it was. Came back with a brand new album with the original lineup. This is the Galactic Cowboys. Wow, this album is spectacular. I mean, if you know that kind of Houston sound that was popular in the 90s, that Houston, Texas sound, bands like Atomic Opera, King's X, and the Galactic Cowboys, they were always the heaviest of those 3 bands that had that sound. You know, they mix in those Beatlesque vocal harmonies with heavy riffs, a bit of groove. It's just a very unique animal. If you haven't heard the Galactic Cowboys, I highly recommend checking out their first 2 albums. But if you already like those first 2 albums, check out this album. Same lineup as the first 2 albums, and this album is fantastic. Double album set. The vinyl actually has the bonus tracks this time around, not the CD. The bonus tracks are Believing the Hype and Say Goodbye to Utopia. That's the D side of the vinyl. It's, again, artwork by the band themselves. They always have spectacular covers. I just can't even describe their sound other than saying if you like that King's X, Galactic Cowboys, Atomic Opera sound, do yourself a favor and check out the new Galactic Cowboys album. It really is one of the best albums they've released since those first 2 albums, or maybe even Machine Fish, you know. Let's see what it says on here. 90s progressive metal adventurers Galactic Cowboy return with the original lineup and their first album in 17 years. So there you go. True hype sticker. Alright. Not going to be any surprise to anyone for my number 1. These guys make my top list almost every freaking year. Absolutely love this band. And this is no exception. I think this is a great album from them. This is Overkill, The Grinding Wheel. A lot of lists this one made this year, so that should tell you something. You know, though I do admit to being an uber fan, you can tell from other people's lists as well that this is one of their better albums because everybody is saying it's just such a solid album from them. Mean Green Killing Machine, the opening track, that's just going to rip your head off. It's just that good. It's epic, epic Overkill. I mean, if you like what Overkill has been doing in the last few years, it's like that, but better. It's, you know, kind of has that groove, some slower songs. It's got the thrash metal and the faster songs. There's just nothing I don't like about this album. They also do a cover of Thin Lizzy's Emerald, which is kind of a nice bonus, being that Thin Lizzy is also one of my favorite bands. So yeah, number 1 for 2017, Overkill's The Grinding Wheel. There you go. There's my top 20 plus of 2017. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what I missed. Again, I have a lot of things that I bought that didn't make the list, and there's a lot of things that I didn't buy yet. You know, I don't have the new Annihilator. I don't have Deep Purple's Infinity, or there's a bunch of albums I just don't have yet, but can't buy everything. Wish I could. Don't have the money or the room in my room for it. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Happy New Year. God bless. Stay strong.